And our special guest today is Tom Spooner from A Warrior's Heart in Texas. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks, Dr. Wax. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure indeed. Before we talk about our topic, mental health after military service, can you tell us a little bit about your background and training and how you came to this field?
Absolutely. So I came into the military in 1990. It's something that I always wanted to do. Family members of mine were in the military.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome, and it was my pleasure, all of it. So I came in 1990. I spent 5 years in the 82nd. As soon as I came in, straight from the street, went from basic to advanced training, and then to the Gulf War. So that was my first exposure into combat, in the military. And it helped set the tone for the rest of my career. So then from 1990 to 1995, I was in the 82nd. From 96.
And which branch of the military is that for those of us that aren't in the know?
Oh, sorry, that is in the U.S. Army.
Okay.
Yep, so that's in the Army. U.S.
Didn't want to accuse you of being part of any other portion of service.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Love them all, but I have my favorites,
sure.
Of course. But and so then in 1996, I went to 7th Special Forces Group, where I was an explosive expert and engineer on a operational detachment, and that was all pre-9/11. So the majority of our work was in Central and South America, and it was mainly training foreign military and doing that. I loved that. And then September of 2001, I went to selection and made it out at Delta, and I was at Delta from 2001 until I retired in 2011.
So that's the Delta Force. That is the rumored Delta Force.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thanks. And I ended up doing total about 12 deployments and about 40 total months time in combat before I retired. Yeah. So and I say all that not being arrogantly, but just so you know that I'm qualified to speak on the subject that we're going to be talking about.
Well, certainly. Well, that's kind of why, we have each guest introduce themselves and talk about their history and things, because, if they've got a slant or a bias or an interest or, a ton of experience, certainly we want our listening audience to understand who's speaking and why they're speaking, how they're speaking, and what might be motivating them to speak. So.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for your service and your family's service. So we're talking about mental health after military service, and I'm sure that basic training sets you up with a whole lot of discipline and a rule architecture. And after that, it's anyone's guess what happens. So can you tell us a little bit about how a person goes from the street to basic training, gets the rules, and then actually winds up in combat for 40 months? I mean, what the differences are, briefly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the main thing with me whenever I started all my combat time, other than the beginning, was, I had been in the military for about 11 years. I'd done a lot of hard schools. I was, well-trained physically and mentally. So I was, had a good layer of toughness and maturity about me by the time I started into combat, which is, a lot of young guys, whenever they come in, especially the ones that came in after 9/11, I mean, they could be 17, 18 years old, you know what I mean, and then immersed in a year's worth of combat and get severely injured, and then have to come back. So I was very fortunate in the time that I had, even with the time that I had in being mature and having a good foundation.
You had a decade of experience and training prior to entry into combat, you're saying. So you were saying you were fortunate.
Absolutely. I know, and I only speak from my own experience. There's folks that experience much more than I have and haven't had any difficulties, and some that have experienced left and had extreme. It's all case by case, non-judgmental about that. So I'll just speak from my own experience. And I know at the end of my experience of even with all the training that I had, the love and the support of my wife and kids. I had no struggles with any self-medication or chemical dependency. I struggled really, really big whenever I got out. And that was what you had mentioned as far as motivation-wise. I've always been really passionate about sobriety and helping guys out with, chemical dependencies and self-medication. And I've been very passionate, obviously, about veterans and specifically the veteran suicide rate whenever I got out, which was reported 22 a day at that time. So it got really, and the thing for me is how I was raised in the military is, you're always looking out for your teammate. You're always looking out for your guys. And specific with me being a leader, it was my responsibility to take care of them. That's both in the physical aspects and then the mental and emotional. So whenever I got out and I went through my own struggles, and I couldn't imagine, someone going through those struggles without help or assistance. And so I got really involved. I was a co-founder of Elder Heart and Mission 22, which just creates awareness for the veteran suicide rate and also gives programs not related to chemical dependencies. And so I was really involved in that and just giving back, and it really helped me out in my journey. And what I noticed with the suicide rates is the majority of those that I know of, had some form of chemical dependency or self-medication involved. And and obviously that was one of my passions through my own struggles earlier in life, and then the solutions that I found through that. So, that's what led me into co-founding Warrior's Heart with Josh and Lisa Lannon, because we want to address what's killing them first. And if any of our population, which at Warrior's Heart, our population is military veterans and first responders only. It's the only one in the nation. Basically, our population is those that face life and death as a profession on a daily basis. They're our protectors.
Right, certainly. Well, what an amazing story. So, specifically, I'm wondering, when someone goes from civilian life, they sign on the dotted line, they get their head shaved, they have to wear olive drab and called for reveille first thing in the morning and have to run 5 miles before breakfast or whatever the case, and all of a sudden there's this world of discipline. Certainly you go through some mental and physical changes. Certainly you get stronger, hopefully mentally, hopefully physically, certainly, or you get broken, one or the other. And then to experience military service and finally combat. And literally, I don't think people realize how difficult combat is. Although there's a lot of high-tech stuff now and cool toys and GPS this and that, and a lot of mechanized sorts of things, that it's still, one man trying to kill another man and trying not to be killed in the process. And that is huge when it comes to physical and mental stressors. I don't know if there's words to describe what that's like. I don't have that feeling, but can you give us a few words for what that feels to be in a foxhole or to have a trigger or something in your hand where someone's trying to kill you and you're trying to defend you and your guys and you want to take him out? What does that feel like?
Absolutely, and like you said, we can try to articulate what that is, what that feels like, and what happens during that. But just like you said, the military is designed, and I'm really glad that you said it, because most people won't say that. The military is designed for one thing and one thing only, and that's to kill the enemies of our country. That's just, it's harsh, but that is what it is for.
Right.
And, and they train individuals up, humans up to take human life, which is a huge, huge deal. And again, I'm just speaking from my own experience. I have no regrets in anything that I've done other than I wish that I could have done more. With that, the one thing that I know about combat, you have your mission, especially after 9/11, you had all the passion, all the different motivations for doing what needed to be done.
Right.
But the one thing that is not it's not that it's not accounted for, is not talked about, is that what combat actually does, one human being to another. And for me, and I speak for myself only, is what I found is that over time...
From the moment of being under that stress of kill or be killed, you're a changed person, obviously,
Absolutely.
by your experience. So what are the negatives and potential positives, and what came out of that?
Yeah, so and I guess they would be called negatives, but just as a result of the combat, what I found for me is that it ended, even though I believed in everything and unregrettable of anything that I've done, is it chipped away at my humanity. Just continuously going and doing, because like you said, combat is an experience that you can't experience anywhere else that I've experienced in my life. And so even though the cause is just and you would do it every time, all the time, the consequences of combat are age-old. It's not like anything in this conflict that we haven't seen in other conflicts where, and I love just using the history part of it, where if you go all the way back to the Civil War, they called it soldier's heart. The effects of combat on humans that experienced it. And then, and then we got into the world wars, and then we called it shell shock, and then we got into Korea, Vietnam time, and we called it battle fatigue, and then, which is now what we currently call PTSD, which, kind of is not the right words for it, but that's the thing that's been going on all this time, and so that's what, any human being that's not a sociopath that experiences combat, is affected greatly, and it's forever changed. But just like most things in life, like if your parents die or, certain events in life change you forever. And combat for sure has the potential to do that to a lot of individuals. So it's like, okay, well, what do you do then?
Right, and that's actually a good place to take a short break so people can join us after these few messages here. We'll be right back with more of Your Health Matters here on Rowan Radio, 89.7 WGLS FM. Welcome back to Your Health Matters. I'm your host, local family physician, Dr. Craig Wax, talking about mental health after military service. Very, very challenging, certainly. Our special guest has tons of experience. It's Tom Spooner, who is a military Army veteran himself and went with Special Forces in the Delta Force in the late 1990s and early 2000s. And he was the co-founder of Warrior's Heart, located in Texas, that helps promote healing, helps deal with chemical dependency and self-medication, and post-traumatic stress disorder and mild traumatic brain injury. Welcome back, Tom.
Thanks, Dr. Wax.
I wish I could run down all of your highlights in 30 seconds, but it's quite a distinguished career, sir, that you have. So if we could pick up where we left off, you had said that the military service, in a phrase, really chipped away at your humanity, as it definitely changes people. You want to tell us a little bit more about that with regard to Warrior's Heart?
Absolutely. And, we were talking about, that profession, the profession of arms, in the military, and then the profession, of our first responders, the things that they see, changes human beings every time. So it's like, what do we do about it? And specifically with military veterans and first responders, from 9/11, to a 911 call, we call on these men and women to help us and our families in our hours of greatest need.
Sure.
And then whenever it comes time for them to need help for what they're experiencing in the profession, is who's there to take care of them, and that's where Warrior's Heart comes into play, is we take care of those that take care of us, and what we found is that, and I found personally, and with everyone in that profession, is that over time, there's some significant events that leave an imprint or an impact that needs to be processed, and other times there's an accumulation of the job, and at Warrior's Heart, that's what we do, and the big thing, like we said out there, is, the primary diagnosis is chemical dependency or self-medication, because that's what we found is killing them the most, the quickest. So out at Warriors Heart, that's what the things that we address, and really, what we call what everyone calls PTSD, we know is basically just unprocessed trauma.
Right.
And that's what we do out there. And the thing that's different about Warriors Heart is that, unlike other facilities, we treat the whole person at one time. So we know we have to go through and get trained up and learn about the skills needed to stay sober, but also we have to treat the PTSD or any co-occurring events that are going on at that time at the same time. And one of the biggest things that we offer at Warriors Heart with our population, keeping it that way, is one of the most powerful things, which is the peer-to-peer network that is there. So even though a stateside paramedic and a combat veteran have very different physical experiences in the profession, the things that are bothering them and the things that hold them tight together, are the things of the heart, and that's where we create that peer-to-peer network. And it's the opposite of a hospital environment that we have there. The treatment that we do is very individualized. We have our normal course curriculum that keeps us going through the day, but it's very individualized. We know there's no cookie-cutter system that will truly help our people with those kind of issues that they have going on.
Right, and who would be amenable to be recommended to this program, and how would they contact you?
Yep, so our population consists of active duty military, veterans, police officers, firefighters, paramedics, any of our first responders. And they would contact us, through warriorsheart.com. And on warriorsheart.com, there's also, a hotline number on there where you can immediately talk to one of our people in admissions and get more information.
Okay, well, that's good information with regard to who it's available to and how to get in touch. What other references would you recommend in the last few minutes of the show?
What do you mean, references?
Well, references with regard to the wonderful internet, which connects us all together for better, for worse, richer, poorer, and all of that stuff. With regard to dealing with mental health after military service and the complications that may bring.
Yeah, one of the, obviously I'm going to speak strongly about Warriors Heart because, that's what we've done. Our primary care is the primary diagnosis with chemical dependencies, but we also, if we have folks that, don't fit for us, we also have the ability to recommend them out. And like we had said, it's at warriorsheart.com, and then also there's the hotline number, which is 888-475-3253.
Very good. I don't know if there's one last message you'd like to leave the audience with at this point.
The biggest thing that I would like to leave the entire audience with is, our military veterans and our first responders, they take care of us in our hours of greatest need, and when we need them the most. And the biggest thing that we're trying to do is, or that we are doing, is we take care of those that take care of us. And we need the community's help with that. We need every American citizen's help with that, and to get the word out that Warriors Heart exists, and it exists for healing for our protectors.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that, Tom. Thanks for being with us and telling us all about Warriors Heart and warriorsheart.com and mental health after military service. Thank you again for your service, sir.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Wax, and you're absolutely welcome.